She was the billionaire CEO's first love, but he never knew about their twins. "I have 2 children you've never met." Maxwell Donovan stared at the message on his phone, his coffee cup slipping from his fingers and shattering on the marble floor of his penthouse. 2 decades of certainty crumbled in an instant. "Olivia?" he whispered, his voice echoing in the empty space. The world's most composed tech billionaire now trembled like a leaf, gripping the edge of his desk as memories flooded back her smile in the summer sunlight, the promises they'd made, the future they'd planned, before it all fell apart. Have you ever had your entire life rewritten with just 7 words? That moment when everything you thought you knew shatters like glass? 2 decades of birthdays, first steps, and bedtime stories gone forever. Could any amount of money buy back the time he'd thrown away? Would these strangers ever call him dad and mean it? Could Olivia forgive the man who had unknowingly abandoned her with 2 heartbeats inside her? Maxwell sank into his leather chair, the city lights of Manhattan twinkling below his penthouse like the stars they'd once counted together on that beach so long ago. His empire stretched across continents, but in this moment, he realized he was bankrupt in everything that counted. What would you do if you discovered your past-held secrets that changed everything? Would you run from the truth or face it head-on? What if your second chance came 2 decades too late? Don't wait for life to remind you what matters. Before we continue, who here hasn't subscribed yet? Go ahead and subscribe right now so you don't miss the next story that could remind you what love really costs. And if you already believe in second chances, tap like and share this story with someone who needs hope tonight. Despite having everything money could buy, a technology empire valued at billions, an architectural marvel of a penthouse, and global recognition and emptiness gnawed at Maxwell Donovan. He sipped his lukewarm coffee, its bitter taste mirroring the regret that occasionally visited him in quiet moments like these. Is this all there is? He wondered, watching the sunrise paint the skyline gold. The question lingered unanswered, in the silence of his perfect, sterile home. 2 decades of relentless work had built his empire, yet something vital was missing. Success felt hollow when there was no one to share it with. The thought had been haunting him more frequently lately, as if his soul knew something his mind hadn't yet recognized. "Another day, another dollar," he muttered to himself. The old phrase his father used to say, now a cynical reminder of how far he'd come from his humble beginnings. Did his father ever feel this emptiness at the height of his success? Or was this void uniquely Maxwell's burden to bear? The next morning, Maxwell descended in his private elevator, perfectly dressed in a custom Italian suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary. His driver waited at the curb, door already open, a routine so familiar it required no thought. "Good morning, Mr. Donovan," said Michael, his driver of 12 years, one of the few constants in Maxwell's carefully controlled life. "Morning, Michael. Riverfront offices today. Board meeting at 9. As the luxury sedan glided through morning traffic, Maxwell scrolled through emails on his tablet, the mundane rhythm of another day beginning. A notification from a local news app caught his attention. Normally, he ignored these, but a familiar name jumped out at him, stopping his heart mid-beat. Local hero, single mother successfully raises twins while building restaurant empire. The headline alone made him pause, but the accompanying photo froze the blood in his veins. Olivia Hale, his Olivia, stood smiling, surrounded by 2 young adults, a boy and a girl, both around 20 years old, both with his distinctive green eyes. The world tilted on its axis. The tablet slipped from his fingers. "Michael?" Maxwell's voice cracked, a sound his driver had never heard before. "Change of plans. Take me to O'Hare. Now." "Sir?" "The board meeting. Cancel it." Maxwell could barely hear his own voice over the thundering of his heart. "Family emergency. Family emergency." The words felt foreign on his tongue, almost laughable in their irony. He had no family. Not since. Memories flooded back with the force of a tsunami. Olivia's voice on the phone 20 years ago, breaking with emotion. He'd been so wrapped up in securing his first major investment deal that he'd barely listened. She needed to talk to him about something important. He'd promised to call her back, but then his mother had told him Olivia had left town, that she'd accepted money to disappear. He'd believed her. Had Olivia said she was pregnant? Had he been so self-absorbed that he missed this crucial detail? Or had his mother intercepted that call too? The questions pounded in his head as Michael navigated through traffic. The urgency in Maxwell's voice compelling him to break speed limits he normally observed religiously. What would he even say to her after all this time? What could possibly bridge a 20-year chasm of absence? 3 hours later, Maxwell's private jet touched down in Chicago. His hands trembled as he checked the address of Olivia's restaurant, Hale and Hardy, a successful farm-to-table establishment in the heart of the city. Would she even see him? Would she slam the door in his face? Did he deserve anything less? The evening rush was in full swing when Maxwell walked through the doors. The hostess smiled professionally, unaware that her next words would change the course of multiple lives. "Welcome to Hale and Hardy. Do you have a reservation?" "No," Maxwell replied, his eyes scanning the restaurant, heart racing with each unfamiliar face. "I'm looking for Olivia Hale. Miss Hale is quite busy this evening. Perhaps I could—" "Please," Maxwell interrupted, his voice soft but urgent. "Tell her Maxwell Donovan is here." The hostess's eyes widened slightly at his name recognition of either his wealth or the desperation in his voice, and she nodded. "One moment, please." Maxwell waited, heart pounding, as the hostess disappeared into the back. Through the kitchen's swinging doors, he caught glimpses of a busy, well-orchestrated team. And then he saw her. Olivia Hale moving with confidence among her staff, giving instructions with the same passionate focus he remembered. Her blonde hair was shorter now, brushing her shoulders instead of cascading down her back. Laugh lines framed her eyes. Eyes that had once looked at him with such love. When she turned and saw him standing there, time seemed to stop. The color drained from her face. The clipboard in her hands clattered to the floor, the sound cutting through the ambient restaurant noise like a gunshot. "Maxwell," she whispered, the name clearly painful on her lips. Before he could speak, 2 young adults appeared behind her, the same 2 from the photograph. The young man, tall and lean, with Maxwell's jawline and build. The young woman with Olivia's delicate features, but Maxwell's piercing green eyes. His children. His twins. The realization hit him with physical force. He had children, 2 of them, adults now, strangers with his blood, his features, his DNA. "Mom?" the young woman asked, concern in her voice. "What's wrong? Who is this?" Olivia seemed unable to form words. Her eyes locked on Maxwell's face, as if seeing a ghost. "I'm Maxwell Donovan," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "And I believe I'm your father." The restaurant fell silent. Conversations halting mid-sentence, silverware pausing mid-air. The young man stepped forward protectively, his posture a mirror image of Maxwell's own stance when confronted. "Our father died before we were born," he said coldly. The words landed like a blow. She'd told them he was dead? What else had she told them about the man who never knew they existed? "Ethan, Emma." Olivia finally found her voice. "Go back to the kitchen, please." "Mom." The young woman, Emma, began. Now, Olivia's tone left no room for argument. Reluctantly, the twins retreated, though not without Ethan casting a suspicious glance over his shoulder. A look that said clearly, "I'm watching you." Olivia approached Maxwell slowly, as if he might disappear if she moved too quickly, or perhaps as if he might be a mirage that would vanish upon closer inspection. 20 years, she said, her voice barely audible. 20 years of silence. And you walk in here like— "I didn't know," Maxwell interrupted, his voice breaking. "Olivia, I swear to you, I didn't know about them." Disbelief flashed across her face, followed by confusion, then anger. "How could you not know? I told you I was pregnant." "You," Maxwell stopped, confusion clouding his features. When did you tell me?" "On the phone, the last time we spoke. I said I needed to tell you something important, and you said you were too busy with investors." "I told you anyway, and you said you'd call me back." Her voice hardened. "You never did." Maxwell's mind raced, trying to piece together fragments of memory. "I remember you calling. I remember promising to call back. But Olivia, I never heard you say you were pregnant. And then my mother told me you'd left town." that you'd taken money to disappear. Olivia's eyes widened. Money? I never took a penny from your family. Your mother came to see me the next day. She showed me a letter from you saying you never wanted to see me again, that our relationship had been a mistake. I never wrote any letter, Maxwell said, the pieces finally falling into place. My mother, she must have... Miss Hale, a server interrupted nervously. I'm sorry, but Table 7 is asking to speak with you, and Chef Marcus needs your approval on the special. Olivia closed her eyes briefly, composing herself. When she opened them, her professional mask was back in place, though Maxwell could see the effort it cost her. This isn't the time or place, she said to Maxwell. We close at 11. Come back then. Maxwell nodded, understanding. I'll be here. As he turned to leave, he caught sight of Emma and Ethan watching from the kitchen doorway. His children, strangers with his blood, his eyes, his features. 2 decades of their lives had passed without him. How could he possibly bridge that gap? What right did he have to disrupt the lives they'd built without him? Yet how could he walk away now that he knew they existed? Be honest, if you discovered a truth that changed everything, would you run or stay? Tell me in the comments right now. I want to read your thoughts. And if you're just joining us, don't watch silently. Hit subscribe, like, and share this story so we can reach every heart that's ever been broken by time. The hours until closing time stretched endlessly. Maxwell walked the streets of Chicago, his mind reeling with revelations. His mother had lied to both of them. She had intercepted Olivia's news about the pregnancy and fabricated a story to drive them apart. Eleanor Donovan had always disapproved of Olivia. She's beneath you, Maxwell, she'd said more than once. A waitress with culinary school dreams? You need someone who understands our world. How far would his mother have gone to ensure her son's proper future? Far enough to destroy 2 lives? No, 4 lives without remorse? His mother had died 5 years ago, taking her secrets to the grave. Or so he'd thought. Now, those secrets had risen like ghosts, demanding acknowledgement, demanding justice. The night air carried a chill that matched the cold realization in Maxwell's heart. His entire adult life had been built on a foundation of lies. Every achievement, every success felt empty and hollow, meaningless compared to what he'd lost without even knowing it. At precisely 11 o'clock, Maxwell returned to Hale and Hardy. The restaurant was empty of customers. Chairs upturned on tables as staff completed closing duties. Ethan stood at the door, arms crossed, a sentinel guarding against intrusion. She said you'd be back, he said, his tone making it clear he'd hoped otherwise. Thank you for waiting, Maxwell replied, trying to see himself in this young man's guarded expression. Was this how he looked when confronting business rivals? This mixture of caution and determination? Ethan led him through the restaurant to a small office in the back. Olivia sat behind a desk, looking exhausted. Emma stood beside her, a protective hand on her mother's shoulder. The family unit was clear, the 3 of them, against the world, against him. Sit down, Olivia said, gesturing to the chair across from her. Maxwell complied, feeling like a defendant awaiting sentencing. I've told them what you said, Olivia began. About not knowing. About your mother's interference. Do you believe me? Maxwell asked quietly. I don't know what to believe anymore, Olivia admitted. But I know Eleanor Donovan was capable of exactly this kind of manipulation. We want proof, Ethan interjected. How do we know you're even our father? Ethan, Emma chided softly. No. He's right, Maxwell said. You have no reason to trust me. He reached into his pocket and withdrew his wallet, removing a small, worn photograph. This is the only picture I have of your mother and me together. He handed it to Emma, who studied it with Ethan looking over her shoulder. Their happiness radiated from the faded image, 2 young people with their whole lives ahead of them, unaware of how quickly it would all fall apart. I've carried this for 2 decades, Maxwell continued. I never stopped loving your mother, even when I thought she'd chosen to leave. If that's true, Olivia said, her voice tight with emotion, why didn't you look for me? Try to find out why I'd suddenly disappear? I did, Maxwell insisted. For months, I searched. I hired investigators. But you'd changed your name, moved across the country. And my mother convinced me that pursuing you would only cause you more pain. He shook his head, self-disgust evident in his expression. I was a coward. I should have tried harder. A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the distant sound of kitchen staff finishing their cleanup. So what now? Emma finally asked, her voice gentler than her brother's. You've found us. What do you want? Maxwell looked at each of them in turn, these three people who should have been his family all along. What did he want? Everything. Nothing. A chance. I want to know you, he said simply. Both of you, if you'll let me. I've missed 2 decades of your lives. I can't get that time back, but I'd like the chance to be part of your future. And if we say no? Ethan challenged. Then I'll respect your decision, Maxwell replied, though the thought sent pain through his chest. But I hope you'll at least consider giving me a chance. Olivia studied him, searching for sincerity or manipulation. Maxwell met her gaze openly, letting her see the regret and hope warring within him. We need time, she finally said. This is a lot to process. Of course, Maxwell nodded. I'll be staying at the Peninsula. Here's my card with my cell number. Call me when if you're ready to talk again. He stood, placing his business card on the desk. As he turned to leave, Emma spoke. Wait, I have questions. Maxwell paused, hope flickering in his chest. Anything. Did you ever think about having a family? After Mom? The question caught him off guard with its directness. I tried dating over the years, he admitted. But nothing ever felt right. Something was always missing. He looked at Olivia briefly. I think, subconsciously, I was always waiting for your mother. Emma nodded, absorbing this. One more question. What's your blood type? Maxwell blinked at the unexpected query. AB negative. Why? Emma and Ethan exchanged a glance. So is mine, Emma said quietly. It's rare. Less than 1% of the population has it. I know, Maxwell replied. I needed a transfusion once after an accident. They told me how lucky I was that they had some in stock. I have O positive, Ethan said, as if this somehow disproved Maxwell's claim. Like your grandfather, Maxwell said without thinking. My father was O positive. Something shifted in Ethan's expression, not softening exactly, but a crack in his armor of hostility. A small connection made through shared biology. We'll call you, Olivia said, standing to indicate the conversation was over. Good night, Maxwell. Good night, he replied, memorizing their faces as if they might disappear again. Thank you for listening. Your new collection is stunning, Em, Ethan said as they walked toward the door. I told you they'd love your work. Always my biggest supporter, Emma said affectionately, linking her arm through her brother's. Maxwell watched this easy familial interaction with a mixture of joy and sorrow. They had built this bond, this shorthand of shared experiences. Without him, would there ever be room for him in their perfectly balanced triangle? We should celebrate, Olivia suggested. Dinner tomorrow night? I could close the restaurant early. Actually, Emma said hesitantly, glancing at Maxwell, I was thinking maybe the 4 of us could have dinner. Together. Ethan stiffened. Just dinner, Ethan, Emma insisted. 1 meal. For me? The siblings exchanged a look that spoke volumes, a silent conversation born of 2 decades of shared life. Maxwell recognized it with a pang. He and his sister had once communicated that way, before distance and different life paths had created a gulf between them. Fine, Ethan finally conceded. 1 dinner. If you're sure, Olivia added, looking between her children. I am, Emma confirmed, then turned to Maxwell. Tomorrow night? 7 o'clock at Hale and Hardy? I'll be there, Maxwell promised, trying to contain the surge of hope in his chest. Thank you, Emma. As the evening wound down, Maxwell bid them good night, careful not to overstay his welcome. This fragile connection was too precious to risk by pushing too hard, too fast. Walking back to his hotel, Maxwell felt lighter than he had in years. For the first time since receiving Olivia's message, he allowed himself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, he might find a place in the family he never knew he had. But what if tomorrow went badly? What if Ethan's resistance hardened? What if Olivia decided the past was better left buried? The questions followed him into uneasy dreams, where he searched endless corridors for children who were always just around the next corner, always just out of reach. Look at them, a family learning to love again. Have you ever been part of a moment that healed more than words ever could? Leave your story in the comments. Someone reading might need your courage. And if you want to keep walking this emotional journey with us, hit like, share, and subscribe before this moment fades, because tomorrow's story might be the one that speaks to you. Hale and Hardy was closed to the public when Maxwell arrived the following evening. A small private event sign hung on the door, which opened as he approached. Ethan stood in the entrance, his expression guarded but not openly hostile. He wore chef's whites, a reminder of the professional life he'd built without Maxwell's influence. "You're punctual," he observed. "That's something at least." "Thank you for agreeing to this," Maxwell said, choosing to ignore the barb. Ethan merely nodded, leading him into the restaurant. The main dining room had been transformed, the usual tables removed except for one in the center, elegantly set for four, with fine china and crystal that gleamed in the soft lighting. Emma greeted him with a small smile. She'd changed from her gallery clothes into a simple dress, her hair pulled back to reveal earrings that Maxwell recognized with a start they had been his mother's, given to Olivia that last summer. "We thought it might be less awkward without an audience of customers," Emma explained, gesturing to the intimate setting. "It's perfect," Maxwell assured her, taking in the warm, inviting space that reflected Olivia's personality in every detail, from the hand-painted tiles behind the bar to the vintage copper pots hanging from the ceiling. "Mom's finishing something in the kitchen," Emma explained. "She insisted on cooking herself tonight, even though she has a full staff. She always did express herself best through food," Maxwell remembered. "It was one of the first things I loved about her." "Some things don't change," Emma said, echoing his words from the gallery. Olivia emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She'd changed from her chef's whites into a simple blue dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. The color brought out the warmth in her eyes that had once looked at Maxwell with such love, now cautious but not cold. "Maxwell," she greeted him, "I hope you're hungry. I might have gone overboard." "Starving," he assured her, though, in truth, his stomach was too knotted with nerves to feel hunger. "Then let's eat," she said, gesturing to the table. "Everything's ready." The meal began awkwardly, with careful small talk about the weather, the restaurant, Emma's photography. Maxwell noticed that Ethan spoke only when directly addressed, his responses polite but minimal. The food, however, was extraordinary, a showcase of Olivia's culinary evolution over the years. Each dish told a story, from the appetizer of seared scallops with a citrus glaze, reminiscent of their first date at a seafood shack, to the main course of herb-crusted lamb. The meal they'd shared the night Maxwell had first told Olivia. He loved her. "You remember," Maxwell said softly, as he recognized the significance of each course. "Cooking is memory," Olivia replied simply. As they ate, the conversation gradually became more natural. Emma shared stories from her time at art school, and even Ethan occasionally contributed, particularly when the topic turned to food and restaurants. "Ethan's the real talent in the kitchen," Olivia said proudly. "He has an instinct for flavors that can't be taught." "Mom exaggerates," Ethan demurred, though Maxwell could see he was pleased by the praise. "She doesn't," Emma countered. "Remember that sauce you created for the halibut special? People still ask for it." "You both inherited your mother's creativity," Maxwell observed, "though in different forms." "What about you?" Ethan asked, breaking the silence. His first direct question to Maxwell all evening. "What did we inherit from you?" The question hung in the air, loaded with subtext. Was Ethan asking about genetic traits, or was he probing deeper, asking what Maxwell had contributed to their lives besides DNA? "Well, your eyes, obviously," Maxwell began carefully. "Perhaps your height. I was always tall for my age, like both of you. My father had a quick mind for numbers, which I inherited." I notice Emma has that same ability with visual patterns, and you, Ethan, with flavor combinations." He paused, then added more softly, "My mother would say you got my stubbornness, though your mother might call it determination." "Definitely stubbornness," Olivia confirmed, with a small smile, "especially in Ethan's case." "I prefer principled," Ethan said dryly, the first hint of humor he'd shown. "A diplomatic choice," Maxwell replied, matching his tone. Something shifted in Ethan's expression, not warmth exactly, but perhaps a slight thawing of his icy reserve. A crack in the wall he'd built to protect himself from the father who had never been there. As Olivia served dessert, a reimagined version of the chocolate cake Maxwell had once brought her for a beach picnic, Emma broached the subject they'd all been dancing around. "So what happens now?" she asked, looking between her parents. "Where do we go from here?" Maxwell waited, letting Olivia speak first. This was her territory. She had been the one constant in the twins' lives. "That depends on what you both want," she said carefully. "Maxwell has expressed his desire to be part of your lives. The question is whether you're open to that, and in what capacity." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "I think I am. Open to it, I mean." She glanced at her brother. "Ethan?" All eyes turned to the young man who had been the most resistant to Maxwell's presence. The weight of the moment was palpable. His decision could shape the course of all their futures. Ethan set down his fork deliberately. "I have questions first. Things I need to understand before I can decide." "Of course," Maxwell said. "Anything." "Why should we trust you?" Ethan asked bluntly. "How do we know you won't disappear again when this novelty wears off?" The question stung, but Maxwell recognized the legitimate fear behind it. This wasn't just about him. It was about Ethan protecting himself and his family from further pain. "I can't prove my intentions with words," he acknowledged. "Only time and actions will show you that I'm committed to being in your lives for as long as you'll have me. And your business? Your life in New York? How does that fit with suddenly having a family in Chicago?" "I've been thinking about that," Maxwell admitted. "I've built a strong executive team over the years. They're more than capable of handling day-to-day operations without me being physically present. Technology makes remote work possible for someone in my position." "You'd move to Chicago?" Emma asked, surprise evident in her voice. "If that's what it takes," Maxwell confirmed. "My company doesn't need me in the office every day. What it needs is my vision, my decisions. I can provide those from anywhere." Ethan studied him, searching for deception. "That's a big change to make for people you barely know." "You're not people," Maxwell said quietly. "You're my children. And your mother." He glanced at Olivia. "She was once the most important person in my life. I'd like the chance to know the woman she's become." A charged silence fell over the table. Olivia looked down at her plate, but not before Maxwell caught the flicker of emotion in her eyes. "I need time," Ethan finally said. "This is a lot." "I understand." Maxwell nodded. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." As the evening drew to a close, Maxwell helped clear the dishes despite Olivia's protests. In the kitchen, he found himself working alongside Ethan, rinsing plates while the younger man loaded the dishwasher. "You don't have to do this," Ethan said, his tone less hostile than before. "I want to," Maxwell replied simply. "It's nice, actually, normal." Ethan glanced at him sideways. "Nothing about this situation is normal." "No," Maxwell agreed with a small smile. "But maybe we can find our own version of normal. Eventually." Ethan didn't respond, but he didn't reject the idea outright either. It was progress, however small. When it was time to leave, Emma surprised Maxwell with a brief hug. "Thank you for coming," she said, "and for being patient with us." "Thank you for giving me a chance," he replied, touched by the gesture. Olivia walked him to the door while the twins finished in the kitchen.
"That went better than I expected,"
she admitted. "They're remarkable people," Maxwell said. "You did an amazing job with them, Olivia." "We were lucky," she replied. "They were good kids, even when things were hard." Maxwell hesitated, then asked, "May I call you? Maybe we could have coffee sometime. Just the two of us. There's so much I'd like to know about the years I missed." Olivia considered this, then nodded slowly. "I think I'd like that. There are things I've wondered about too." Thank you, Maxwell said, resisting the urge to take her hand. Good night, Olivia. Good night, Maxwell. As he walked back to his hotel, Maxwell felt a cautious optimism taking root. The wall of ice between him and his family was beginning to thaw, one careful conversation at a time. But could a few dinners and coffee dates really bridge 2 decades of absence? Or was he fooling himself, thinking he could ever truly be part of their lives? Over the next few weeks, Maxwell established a tentative routine with his newfound family. Coffee with Emma every Tuesday afternoon, where she showed him her latest photographs and gradually shared stories of her childhood. Occasional dinners at Hale and Hardy, sometimes with all 4 of them. Sometimes just with Olivia after the restaurant closed. Ethan remained the most distant, though his outright hostility had faded to cautious observation. Maxwell respected his boundaries, never pushing for more than Ethan was willing to give. The days stretched into weeks, and Maxwell found himself settling into Chicago life. His hotel suite began to feel less temporary, as he added personal touches books, a favorite throw blanket, framed copies of Emma's photographs that she'd given him. One rainy Thursday afternoon, as Maxwell was reviewing quarterly reports from New York, his phone rang with an unexpected name on the screen. "Ethan," he answered, unable to hide his surprise. "Is everything all right?" "Yes," Ethan replied, his voice tense. "I was wondering if you might have time to meet today. There's something I'd like to discuss with you." Maxwell's heart raced. Was this the moment Ethan would tell him to leave them alone for good? Or could it possibly be something else? "Of course," Maxwell said immediately. "Name the time and place." "There's a coffee shop near my apartment, Brew Point on Clark Street. 4 o'clock? I'll be there." Maxwell arrived early, nervous about this first one-on-one meeting with his son. The cafe was warm and inviting, with exposed brick walls and the rich aroma of freshly ground coffee. He chose a table in the corner, where they could talk privately. What could Ethan want to discuss? Had he decided to cut ties completely? The thought sent a chill through Maxwell's heart, just when he was beginning to feel like he might have a place in their lives. Ethan arrived precisely at 4, shaking raindrops from his jacket as he entered. He spotted Maxwell and approached, his expression unreadable. "Thank you for coming," he said formally as he sat down. "Of course," Maxwell replied. "Would you like something to drink?" "I already ordered at the counter. They'll bring it over." An awkward silence fell between them. Maxwell waited, letting Ethan set the pace of the conversation. Pushing too hard had never worked with his son. He'd learned that much in their brief acquaintance. "I've been working on a business plan," Ethan finally said, "for my own restaurant." Of all the things Maxwell had imagined Ethan might want to discuss, this hadn't been one of them. "That's wonderful," he said, genuinely pleased. "Your mother must be proud." "She doesn't know yet," Ethan admitted. "I wanted to make sure it was viable before I told her. She might see it as leaving the family business. I might, dies is due, which she doesn't know yet. Might, leaving." Maxwell nodded, understanding the complexity of family dynamics. "And is it viable, I mean?" Ethan hesitated, then reached into his messenger bag and withdrew a folder.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. You've built a successful company.
"You understand business in a way Mom doesn't. She's an amazing chef and restaurateur, but the financial side has always been a struggle for her." He slid the folder across the table. "Would you look at this? Tell me if I'm missing something? If it's a pipe dream or something that could actually work?" Maxwell stared at the folder, recognizing the olive branch for what it was. Ethan was asking for his help, his expertise, in the one area where he might have something valuable to offer. This wasn't just about business advice. It was Ethan allowing Maxwell into a part of his life, trusting him with something important. "I'd be honored," Maxwell said, careful to keep his voice steady despite the emotion welling in his chest. "Tell me about your concept." For the next hour, Ethan outlined his vision of farm-to-table restaurant with a twist, focusing on sustainable seafood and locally sourced ingredients. His passion was evident in every detail, from the menu concepts to the restaurant layout. Maxwell listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions and offering suggestions only when appropriate. As Ethan spoke, Maxwell could see both Olivia's creativity and his own analytical mind at work, a perfect blend of their strengths. "This is impressive, Ethan," Maxwell said when his son had finished. Truly, you've thought of nearly everything. Nearly? Ethan picked up on the qualification. Your financial projections are a bit optimistic for the first year. Maxwell explained gently. Most restaurants don't turn a profit until year 2 or 3, and your location costs seem low for the neighborhood you're targeting. Rather than becoming defensive, Ethan nodded thoughtfully. That's exactly what I needed to know. I can revise those sections. I'd be happy to help if you'd like, Maxwell offered cautiously. Not to take over, just to provide feedback. Ethan studied him for a moment, then nodded. I'd appreciate that. But I want to do this on my own merit. No investors from your network. No pulling strings. Understood, Maxwell assured him. This is your vision, your achievement. I'm just here to offer perspective. As they continued discussing the business plan, the tension between them gradually eased. By the time they finished their second round of coffee, they were engaged in a lively debate about restaurant profit margins that felt almost normal. Like a father and son discussing business, without the weight of 20 years of absence hanging between them. I should get going, Ethan said eventually, glancing at his watch. I'm on dinner service tonight. Of course, Maxwell replied, returning the folder. Thank you for sharing this with me, Ethan. It means a lot. Ethan nodded, a hint of a smile touching his lips. Thanks for the input. It was helpful. As they stood to leave, Ethan hesitated, then asked, Would you be free next week? Same time? I could bring the revised projections? Maxwell felt a surge of hope. This wasn't just a one-time meeting. Ethan was suggesting a continuation, a building of something new. Absolutely. I'll be here. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the afternoon sun. They walked together to the corner where they would part ways, Ethan to the restaurant, Maxwell back to his hotel. Your mother doesn't know about this meeting? Maxwell asked. No, Ethan admitted. I wanted to. I don't know. Form my own opinion, I guess. And have you? Formed an opinion? Ethan considered this, his expression thoughtful. I'm working on it, he said finally. But I think maybe Emma was right about giving you a chance. It wasn't forgiveness or acceptance, not yet, but it was a beginning. A foundation they could build on. One conversation at a time. Thank you, Maxwell said simply. That's all I'm asking for. As Ethan walked away, Maxwell watched him go, this young man who carried his blood, his features, his determination. For the first time, he allowed himself to truly believe that perhaps they might find their way to being father and son, not just by biology, but by choice. Some wounds only close when truth is finally spoken. If this part hit you in the heart, don't just scroll. Comment "Forgiveness heals" below. And to every soul still watching silently, subscribe now. Because missing stories like this means missing the lessons that might one day save your family. Tap like if you believe forgiveness is stronger than pride. The following Sunday, Maxwell joined Olivia for brunch at a small cafe near her apartment. These private meetings had become increasingly comfortable, the awkwardness of their reunion giving way to a tentative friendship. Olivia looked relaxed in casual weekend clothes, jeans, and a soft sweater that reminded Maxwell of the young woman he'd fallen in love with all those years ago. The years had been kind to her. The lines around her eyes spoke of laughter rather than hardship. Ethan showed me his business plan, Maxwell mentioned, as they waited for their food. It's impressive. He has a real vision. Olivia's eyes widened. He told you about that? He's been so secretive about it. He wanted a business perspective, Maxwell explained. He was worried about telling you, afraid you might see it as abandoning the family restaurant. Oh, Olivia looked down at her coffee. I suppose that makes sense. I've always assumed he'd take over Hale and Hardy someday. He admires what you've built, Maxwell assured her. But he wants to create something of his own, too. I think he needs your blessing more than your business advice. Olivia nodded thoughtfully. I'll talk to him. Let him know I support whatever path he chooses. She smiled ruefully. Though I'll miss having him in my kitchen every day. You've done an amazing job with them, Olivia, Maxwell said softly. Raising them to be independent, confident, talented. I wish I could have been there to help, but I'm not sure I would have done half as well as you did on your own. It wasn't easy, she admitted, vulnerability showing through her usual composure. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering how I'd manage. Days when I was so exhausted I could barely function. But they were worth every struggle. Maxwell tried to imagine it. Olivia, barely more than a girl herself, juggling infant twins, culinary school, and work. The image filled him with deep regret and admiration. I wish I could give back those years, Maxwell said, the familiar guilt washing over him. For all of us. We can't change the past, Olivia replied, reaching across the table to briefly touch his hand the first time she had initiated contact since their reunion. But maybe we can build something new. Something different, but still valuable. Hope flickered in Maxwell's chest. I'd like that, very much. Their food arrived, temporarily pausing the conversation. As they ate, Maxwell gathered his courage to ask the question that had been on his mind for weeks. Olivia, there's something I've been wondering. The letter my mother showed you, the one supposedly from me, do you still have it? Olivia set down her fork, surprised by the question. I don't know. Maybe? In some old box somewhere. Why? I'd like to see it, Maxwell explained. To understand exactly what she wrote. What lies she told in my name? Olivia nodded slowly. I'll look for it. I kept a box of mementos from that time. Things I couldn't bring myself to throw away, but couldn't bear to look at either. Thank you, Maxwell said. And if you find it, would you consider showing me the other things as well? I've missed so much of their lives. Photos, school reports, anything that might help me know who they were growing up. I think I could do that, Olivia agreed softly. They were beautiful children, Maxwell. You would have loved them so much. I already do, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. Even though I've only just met them. They're part of you and part of me. How could I not love them? Something shifted in Olivia's expression. A softening, a warming. For the first time since their reunion, Maxwell glimpsed not just the memory of what they'd once shared, but the possibility of what they might become. As they walked back to her apartment, their conversation turned to lighter topics. Books they'd read, places they'd traveled, the changes in their hometown since they'd left. It felt almost like the early days of their relationship, when they were still discovering each other, still delighted by each new revelation. This was nice, Olivia said as they reached her building. I wasn't sure if we could ever be comfortable with each other again. I wasn't either, Maxwell admitted, but I'm glad we're trying. Me too, she replied with a small smile. See you at Emma's opening on Thursday? I wouldn't miss it, he promised. As he walked away, Maxwell felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in decades. The past couldn't be changed, but perhaps the future still held possibilities he'd never dared to imagine. The following weekend, Maxwell received a text from Olivia. Found the box. Are you free this afternoon? His heart raced as he replied, Yes. What time? 3? My place. I'll text the address. Maxwell spent the intervening hours in a state of nervous anticipation. This felt significant, Olivia inviting him into her home, sharing these precious memories of their children's lives. Her apartment was in a converted warehouse in a trendy neighborhood, the space open and airy with high ceilings and exposed brick walls. It reflected her personality, perfectly warm, creative, unpretentious. This is lovely, Maxwell said, as she welcomed him inside. It's home, Olivia replied simply. The twins had the bedrooms when they lived here. Now they're both in their own places, though they still have keys and show up regularly for meals. She led him to the living room, where a large cardboard box sat on the coffee table. I found it in storage. I haven't opened it in years. They sat side by side on the sofa, the box between them like a time capsule waiting to be discovered. Are you sure you want to do this? Maxwell asked gently. It might be painful for you. It's time, Olivia said, taking a deep breath. They're your children too. You deserve to know who they were. She opened the box carefully. On top lay a yellowed envelope, the paper creased from repeated folding and unfolding over the years. She handed it to Maxwell without a word. He opened it with trembling fingers, unfolding the letter inside. The handwriting was a reasonable approximation of his own, but to his eye, the forgery was obvious. The words were cruel in their calculated precision. Olivia, I've given our situation considerable thought, and I've come to the conclusion that continuing our relationship would be a mistake. My family has made it clear that I have responsibilities that cannot be reconciled with the life you envision. I'm sure you understand that my future must take precedence over a summer romance. I've arranged for a generous settlement to ease this transition. Please accept it as a token of my regard and as compensation for any inconvenience this may cause you. I wish you well in your culinary pursuits. Maxwell, anger and disgust washed over him as he read the cold, dismissive words his mother had crafted. This isn't me, he said, his voice tight with emotion. Not my words, not my handwriting, not my heart. I would never have written this. I know that now, Olivia said softly. But at 20, heartbroken and pregnant, it was easier to believe than to question. I'm so sorry, Maxwell whispered, setting the letter aside. If I had known what she'd done. We can't change the past, Olivia reminded him gently. Let's look at what we can share instead. She reached into the box and withdrew a small photo album. Their first year, she explained, opening it to reveal a picture of two tiny infants in hospital bassinets. They were born 6 weeks early, so small, but so perfect. Maxwell stared at the image of his newborn children, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. These tiny, vulnerable beings had needed him, and he hadn't been there. They were beautiful, he managed to say. Ethan was always the serious one, Olivia continued, turning pages to show the babies growing month by month. Even as an infant, he watched everything so intently. Emma was our smiler, always ready with a grin for anyone who looked her way. For the next 2 hours, they explored the contents of the box together, report cards and crayon drawings, school photos and birthday party snapshots. Each item was a window into the childhood Maxwell had missed, a piece of the puzzle that was his children's lives. This was Emma's first photography award, Olivia explained, showing him a certificate from a middle school art contest. And this was Ethan's winning recipe from a junior chef competition when he was 14. Maxwell absorbed each detail hungrily, trying to construct a mental timeline of their growth and development. They were extraordinary even then, he observed. They were, Olivia agreed. But it wasn't all achievements and smiles. There were hard times too. She hesitated, then added, They asked about you, of course. As they got older, the questions became more difficult to answer. What did you tell them? Maxwell asked quietly. The truth, as I understood it then, Olivia replied. That we had loved each other once, but you had chosen a different path. That you didn't know about them. Did they resent me? Sometimes, she admitted. Especially Ethan. There were father-son events he had to attend alone or with my father. Emma seemed to accept it more easily, though I know she felt the absence too. The knowledge cut deep. But Maxwell was grateful for Olivia's honesty. Thank you for sharing this with me, he said. All of it, the good and the difficult. As they continued through the box, they came across a small, leather-bound journal. Olivia's expression changed when she saw it. I forgot this was in here, she said softly. What is it? My journal from when I was pregnant, she explained, and from their first year. She held it for a moment, then slowly offered it to him. You should read this. Not now, but when you're ready. It might help you understand what those days were like. Maxwell accepted the journal reverently, understanding the significance of what she was sharing. Are you sure? Yes, Olivia nodded. It's part of their story. Part of our story. As the afternoon light began to fade, they finally reached the bottom of the box. Maxwell felt emotionally drained, yet somehow fuller than before, as if the missing pieces of his life were gradually being restored. Thank you, he said simply, unable to find words adequate for what this gift of memories meant to him. They're your children too, Olivia repeated her earlier words. You deserved to know. As Maxwell prepared to leave, Olivia walked him to the door. They stood facing each other, the air between them charged with unspoken emotions. "Would you like to come to Sunday dinner next week?" she asked, her voice soft. "The twins usually come over. It's become our tradition." "I'd love that," Maxwell replied, touched by the invitation. Olivia smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes that he hadn't seen since their reunion. "Good. 7 o'clock. On impulse, Maxwell reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "Thank you for today. For everything." She didn't pull away. "You're welcome, Maxwell." As he walked to his car, the journal tucked carefully in his jacket pocket, Maxwell felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in decades. The past couldn't be changed, but perhaps the future still held possibilities he'd never dared to imagine. That night, in the quiet of his hotel suite, Maxwell opened Olivia's journal. Her handwriting, so familiar yet changed by time, filled the pages with raw emotion. "I'm pregnant. 2 pink lines that change everything. I'm terrified and elated all at once. How do I tell Max? Will he be happy? Will this derail his plans, his dreams? Will it derail mine?" The early entries were full of hope and anxiety, in equal measure the normal concerns of a young woman facing an unexpected pregnancy, complicated by her love for an ambitious young man with family pressures. Then came the entry that broke his heart. "He's gone." The letter arrived today, cold, formal, final. A summer romance that's all I was to him, a distraction, an amusement. And now a complication to be resolved with money. "I thought I knew him. I thought what we had was real. How could I have been so wrong? 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 How could I have been so wrong?" Maxwell had to stop reading, the pain of her words of what his mother had done to them both too acute to bear. When he continued, the entries chronicled Olivia's journey through pregnancy alone, her determination growing alongside her belly. "The doctor heard 2 heartbeats today. Twins. I laughed until I cried. Or cried until I laughed. I'm not sure which. 2 babies. Twice the love. Twice the work. Twice the fear. But I can do this. I have to do this." As the journal progressed, Olivia's focus shifted from her heartbreak to her children. Her strength shone through every page, her refusal to be defeated, her commitment to creating a good life for her babies, despite the challenges. The final entry, written on the twins' first birthday, brought tears to Maxwell's eyes. "My beautiful babies are 1 year old today. Ethan took his first steps yesterday, determined to keep up with his sister. Emma says, 'Mama,' and 'no' with equal enthusiasm. They are perfect, these children we made. Sometimes I see him in their faces, in Emma's eyes, and Ethan's serious expressions. I wonder if he ever thinks of me, if he would be proud of them. I wonder if someday they'll ask questions I don't know how to answer. But today, we celebrate. Today, we are complete, the 3 of us. My heart is full." Maxwell closed the journal, overwhelmed by what might have been and what still could be. He had missed so much. But perhaps it wasn't too late to create new memories, to build a different kind of family than the one they'd once imagined. With that hope in his heart, he made a decision. It was time to put down roots in Chicago, to commit fully to this second chance he'd been given. The next morning, Maxwell called his real estate agent in New York. "I need you to find me a property in Chicago," he said. "Something permanent, not just an investment." "Chicago?" his agent repeated, surprised. "That's unexpected. Any particular neighborhood?" "Lincoln Park or Gold Coast," Maxwell replied. "Somewhere with character, not just another glass tower. And I need it soon." "How soon are we talking?" "Yesterday," Maxwell said, a smile in his voice. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of urgency that had nothing to do with business deals or market opportunities. After hanging up, he called his executive team to arrange a video conference. It was time to restructure the company leadership to accommodate his new priorities. His life was no longer centered in New York. He found his true home in Chicago. Would they understand? Would the board resist? For once, Maxwell didn't care. Some things were more important than shareholder expectations. Sunday dinner at Olivia's apartment became a weekly tradition over the next month. Maxwell found himself looking forward to these gatherings with an eagerness that surprised him. The simple pleasure of being with his family, learning their rhythms and routines, becoming part of their lives in small but meaningful ways. Ethan's resistance continued to soften, especially as they worked together on his restaurant business plan. Emma had embraced Maxwell's presence wholeheartedly, often texting him during the week to share photographs or ask his opinion on her latest projects. And Olivia. Their relationship was evolving into something neither of them had anticipated. Not quite the passionate romance of their youth, but a deeper connection built on shared history, mutual respect, and the love they both had for their children. One Sunday evening, as they cleared the dinner dishes together, Maxwell decided it was time to share his news. "I've been looking at properties," he said casually. "I found a townhouse in Lincoln Park that I think would work well." Olivia paused, a plate in her hand. "You're really staying then? Permanently?" "Yes," Maxwell confirmed. "I've restructured my leadership team at Donovan Tech. I'll still be involved strategically, but I can do that from here, with occasional trips to New York when necessary." "That's a big change," Olivia observed, resuming her task. "Are you sure it's what you want?" "I've never been more certain of anything," Maxwell replied. "My life is here now, with Emma and Ethan, and—" he hesitated, then added softly, "with you, if that's something you might want too." Olivia set down the dish towel, turning to face him fully. "Maxwell, I'm not asking for anything specific," he clarified quickly. "I just want you to know that my feelings for you never truly died. They were buried under years of misunderstanding and distance, but they were always there." Olivia's expression softened. "I think I understand that better than anyone. But we're different people now. We can't simply pick up where we left off 20 years ago." "I don't want to," Maxwell said, surprising her. "I want to know who you are now, the strong, incredible woman who raised our children, built a successful business, created this beautiful life. I want to earn a place in that life, not reclaim what we once had." Before Olivia could respond, Emma called from the living room. "Mom, Dad, come look at this." They both froze at Emma's casual use of Dad the first time she had called him that. Their eyes met, sharing the significance of the moment. "We should go see what she wants," Olivia said softly. "Yes," Maxwell agreed, his heart full. "We should." In the living room, they found Emma excitedly showing Ethan something on her laptop. "What is it?" Olivia asked, joining them on the sofa. "I just got an email from National Geographic," Emma explained, her voice brimming with excitement. "They want to feature my Chicago River series in their Urban Waterways issue." "That's amazing, sweetheart," Olivia exclaimed, hugging her daughter. "Congratulations," Maxwell added, his pride evident. "It's well-deserved recognition." "Thanks, Dad," Emma said, the word flowing naturally now. She turned to her brother. "Told you they'd love the industrial shoreline shots." "Never doubted it," Ethan replied with a grin. "Though I still think the Dawn Fog series is your best work." As the twins debated the merits of different photographic techniques, Maxwell caught Olivia watching him, a soft smile on her lips. "What?" he asked quietly. "Nothing," she replied. "Just this. All of us together. It's nice." "Yes," Maxwell agreed, his heart full. "It is." Later that evening, as Maxwell prepared to leave, Ethan approached him with an envelope. "What's this?" Maxwell asked, surprised. "The revised business plan," Ethan explained. "With all your suggestions incorporated. I'm meeting with a bank loan officer next week." "That's fantastic," Maxwell said, genuinely pleased. "You've put in the work. It shows." Ethan hesitated, then added, "I was wondering if you might come with me to the meeting. You understand the financial language better than I do." Maxwell felt a surge of emotion at this request, this trust his son was finally extending to him. "I'd be honored," he said simply. Ethan nodded, a small smile playing at his lips. "Thanks, Dad." The word, spoken for the first time, hung in the air between them, a bridge finally crossed, a connection finally made. "You're welcome, son," Maxwell replied, his voice thick with emotion. As he drove back to his hotel that night, Maxwell felt a sense of completion he'd never experienced before. His children had accepted him. They were becoming a family. And perhaps, in time, he and Olivia might find their way back to each other as well. The next morning, Maxwell made an offer on the Lincoln Park townhouse. It was time to put down permanent roots in Chicago. Time to fully commit to the family he'd found again. If this story made you feel something, don't let it fade. Hit like right now if you believe in second chances. Share this story so someone else remembers it's never too late. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if your past walked back into your life with the truth? Finally, if you haven't subscribed yet, ask yourself why. Keep missing stories that heal the soul. Subscribe now and be part of a community that believes love deserves another chance. 2 months later, Maxwell stood in his newly furnished townhouse, surveying the space that would be his home. The moving company had just left, leaving him alone with the boxes and furniture that represented his new life in Chicago. The 3-story brownstone had character and warmth, so different from his sleek, modern penthouse in New York. He'd chosen it not just for its proximity to Olivia's apartment and the twins' places, but because it felt like somewhere a family could gather. His phone rang Olivia's number. "Hello," he answered, smiling at the sound of her voice. "How's the unpacking going?" she asked. "Slowly," he admitted. "I didn't realize how much stuff I'd accumulated over the years. Need some help? The twins and I could come over. Many hands make light work, as my mother always says." "I'd like that," Maxwell replied, warmth spreading through his chest at the thought of his family filling this empty space. An hour later, his doorbell rang. Olivia stood on his doorstep, a casserole dish in her hands. Behind her, Emma and Ethan carried bags of groceries. "We thought you might need sustenance for the unpacking marathon," Olivia explained, stepping inside. "And we brought wine," Emma added, holding up a bottle, essential for any moving day. "This place is great," Ethan observed, looking around appreciatively. "Good bones." "Thanks," Maxwell said, touched by their thoughtfulness. "I'm glad you approve." For the next several hours they worked together, unpacking boxes, arranging furniture, debating the placement of artwork. It felt surprisingly natural, this domestic collaboration. Ethan's practical suggestions, Emma's eye for design, Olivia's organizational skills, all complementing Maxwell's vision for the space. By evening, the main living areas were largely settled, though plenty of boxes remained in the spare bedrooms and office. "I think we've earned a break," Olivia declared, heading to the kitchen to heat up the casserole she'd brought. They ate at Maxwell's new dining table, its surface still gleaming with newness. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and the comfortable silences of people at ease with one another. "Oh, I almost forgot," Emma said suddenly, reaching for her bag. "I brought something for your new place." She handed Maxwell a wrapped package. "You didn't have to do that," he protested, though he was clearly pleased. "Open it," she urged. Maxwell carefully removed the wrapping paper to reveal a framed photograph of one of Emma's works. It showed the 4 of them at Sunday dinner a few weeks earlier, caught in a moment of natural laughter. Olivia's head was thrown back in delight. Ethan was mid-gesture telling a story. Emma's smile was radiant. And Maxwell was looking at them all with undisguised love. "Emma," he breathed, emotion tightening his throat. "It's perfect." "I thought you might want a family photo," she said simply, "for your new home." "I love it," Maxwell assured her, running his fingers over the frame. "Thank you." "I have something too," Ethan said, somewhat awkwardly. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew an envelope. "It's not as nice as Emma's gift, but..." Maxwell opened the envelope to find a business card. "Ethan Hale, Executive Chef," it read, with the logo for title. "Ethan's Planned Restaurant." "The loan came through," Ethan explained. "We close on the space next week. You're the first person I'm telling, actually. Haven't even told Mom yet." "Ethan!" Olivia exclaimed. "That's wonderful news." "Congratulations," Maxwell said, genuine pride in his voice. "You've worked incredibly hard for this." "I couldn't have done it without your help," Ethan admitted. The bank officer specifically mentioned how impressed he was with the financial projections. The concept is all yours, Maxwell insisted. I just helped with some numbers. Well, I want you there, Ethan continued, for the opening. And I was hoping you might consider being an advisor, not an investor, he added quickly. I want to do this on my own, financially. But I could use your business expertise. I'd be honored, Maxwell replied, touched by the request. As the evening wound down, Emma and Ethan departed first, citing early morning commitments. Olivia lingered, helping Maxwell wash the dinner dishes. They've really accepted you, she observed, handing him a plate to dry. It's more than I dared hope for, Maxwell admitted. More than I deserve. Don't say that, Olivia chided gently. You've been patient, respectful of their boundaries. You've earned their trust. And yours? Maxwell asked, setting down the towel to face her. Have I earned that too? Olivia met his gaze steadily. Yes, she said simply. You have. Something shifted between them. In that moment, a final barrier falling away. A new possibility opening up. Olivia, Maxwell began, his voice soft. These past months have been the happiest of my life. Being with you, with our children. It's everything I never knew I was missing. I feel it too, she admitted. Watching you with them, seeing the man you've become. It's not what I expected when you walked into my restaurant that night. And what did you expect? He asked, genuinely curious. I thought you'd be like your mother, Olivia confessed. Cold, calculating, using money and power to get what you wanted. Instead, you've been you. The man I fell in love with all those years ago. But wiser, more patient. I never stopped loving you, Maxwell said quietly. Even when I thought you'd chosen to leave, there was always a part of my heart that belonged to you. Olivia stepped closer, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. I think there was always a part of me that hoped you'd find us someday, that the truth would come out. And now that it has? Maxwell asked, hardly daring to breathe. In answer, Olivia reached up and touched his face, her fingers gentle against his cheek. Now we see what happens next, she whispered, and leaned in to kiss him. The kiss was soft, tentative at first, then deepening as 2 decades of separation melted away. When they finally parted, both were breathless. Stay, Maxwell said simply. Not forever, not yet, just tonight. Olivia smiled, a hint of her youthful mischief in her eyes. I thought you'd never ask. 1 year later, the private dining room at Tidal was filled with laughter and conversation. Ethan's restaurant had become one of Chicago's hottest dining destinations in the 6 months since its opening, earning rave reviews for its innovative seafood menu and commitment to sustainability. Tonight, however, it was closed to the public for a special family celebration. Maxwell stood at the head of the table, raising his glass for a toast. Beside him, Olivia beamed, her hand resting comfortably in his. Across the table, Emma sat with her fiancé, Daniel, whom she'd met while photographing his environmental conservation project. Ethan and his girlfriend, Sophia, the restaurant's pastry chef, completed the gathering. A year ago, Maxwell began, his voice rich with emotion, I received a message that changed my life forever. I have 2 children you've never met. Those words shattered everything I thought I knew about my life and opened the door to everything that truly mattered. He looked around the table, his gaze lingering on each face. In 1 year, I've gone from a man who had everything money could buy, but nothing of real value, to a man rich beyond measure in the only currency that counts, family, love, connection. Maxwell turned to Emma and Ethan. My children, who welcomed me into their lives with grace and forgiveness I didn't deserve, who gave me the chance to know them, to love them, to be the father I should have been all along. Emma smiled, tears glistening in her eyes, the same distinctive green as his own. Ethan nodded. The wall of resistance that had once stood between them, now completely dismantled. And Olivia, Maxwell continued, his voice softening as he gazed at the woman beside him, who found the courage to open her heart again after 20 years of hurt and separation, who built an extraordinary life and raised 2 remarkable human beings without me, yet still found room to let me in. He raised his glass higher. To second chances, to truth that heals, to the family we lost, the family we found, and the family we're building together. To family, they echoed, clinking glasses around the table. As they enjoyed Ethan's specially prepared feast, Maxwell marveled at how naturally they had all come together. Emma and Daniel discussing their upcoming wedding plans. Ethan and Sophia debating the merits of a new dessert concept. Olivia's hand finding his under the table, a gesture that had become familiar and precious. After dinner, as they lingered over coffee and Sophia's decadent chocolate torte, Maxwell cleared his throat. "There's another reason I wanted us all together tonight," he said, reaching into his pocket. "Something I wanted to share with all of you." He withdrew a small velvet box and turned to Olivia. Her eyes widened as she realized what was happening. 20 years ago, I had a ring in my pocket the night you called to tell me something important," Maxwell said softly. "I never got the chance to give it to you then. I'd like to correct that now, if you'll let me." Gasps and murmurs circled the table as Maxwell slid from his chair to one knee beside Olivia. "Olivia Hale," he said, opening the box to reveal a stunning emerald ring surrounded by diamonds. "You are the love of my life, the beginning and end of every dream I've ever had. Will you marry me? Again? At last? Forever?" Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." Maxwell, as he slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit applause erupted around them. Emma was openly crying, while Ethan's usual reserve had given way to a broad smile. "Finally," Emma exclaimed. "We've been waiting for this for months." "You knew?" Olivia asked, looking between her children in surprise. "Dad asked our permission weeks ago," Ethan explained. The word dad now flowing naturally from his lips. "We've been sworn to secrecy." "And you approved?" Olivia asked, though the answer was evident in their joyful faces. "Of course we did," Emma replied. "You belong together. You always have." Ethan nodded in agreement. "Even when I was angry about the past, I could see how you looked at each other. Some things don't change." Maxwell felt his heart swell with gratitude. Not only had his children accepted him, they were now blessing this new beginning with their mother. It was more than he had dared to hope for when he'd first received that life-changing message. Later that evening, as they walked hand in hand along the Chicago riverfront, Olivia admired the emerald ring sparkling in the moonlight. "It's beautiful," she said. "But you mentioned having a ring 20 years ago?" Maxwell nodded. "A simple diamond. Nothing as special as this. I wanted something new for our new beginning. The emerald reminded me of your eyes, and the eyes you gave our children." Olivia squeezed his hand. "Our children," she repeated softly. "I never thought I'd hear you say those words." "I plan to say them every day for the rest of our lives," Maxwell promised, along with, "I love you." "I love you too," Olivia replied, leaning into his embrace. "I think I never really stopped, even when I thought I hated you." They paused at a railing overlooking the water, the city lights reflecting in rippling patterns on its surface. The night was cool but not cold, perfect for walking and talking about the future that now stretched before them. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if my mother hadn't interfered?" Maxwell asked. "If we'd raised the twins together from the beginning?" Olivia considered this, her expression thoughtful. "Sometimes. But then I think about who Emma and Ethan have become, their strength, their independence, their bond with each other. And I wonder if things happened exactly as they needed to create the people we all are now." "Wise as always," Maxwell said, kissing her temple. "Though I'll never stop wishing I could have been there for their first steps, their first words." "You're here now," Olivia reminded him, "for all the steps still to come, for Emma's wedding, for the opening of Ethan's second restaurant someday, for whatever the future holds." "For grandchildren, perhaps?" Maxwell suggested with a smile. Olivia laughed, the sound carrying across the water. "Let's not rush them. But yes, someday. And you'll be an amazing grandfather when that day comes." They continued their walk, planning their wedding, discussing their future. They would keep both their homes for now, the townhouse and Olivia's apartment, but eventually find a place that would be truly theirs together. Maxwell would continue his reduced role at Donovan Tech, focusing more on mentoring young entrepreneurs like Ethan. Olivia would gradually hand over more responsibility at Hale and Hardy to her talented executive chef, giving her time to explore new culinary ventures. It won't always be easy, Olivia acknowledged as they reached her building. We're both used to independence, to making our own decisions. True, Maxwell agreed, but I think we've both learned that some things are worth compromising for, worth fighting for. Like family, Olivia said. Like love, Maxwell added, drawing her close for a kiss that held the promise of all their tomorrows. As they stood together under the starlit sky, Maxwell reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. From the heartbroken young lovers torn apart by deception, to the successful but separate adults they'd become, to this second chance neither had expected, but both now cherished beyond measure. 20 years lost, but a lifetime still ahead. It wasn't the story they'd planned to write together, but perhaps it was even more beautiful for having been interrupted and found again a love strong enough to survive time, distance, and misunderstanding. A love worth waiting for. We spend our lives chasing what glitters, until the heart reminds us what truly shines. Forgive faster, love louder, hold longer, and remember, some stories entertain you, others change you. Don't miss the next one. 2 years later. The beach house overlooked the same stretch of shoreline where Maxwell and Olivia had first fallen in love more than 2 decades earlier. They'd purchased it as a family retreat, a place where the expanding Donovan Hale clan could gather away from the demands of their busy lives. Today, the house was filled with activity as they prepared for Emma's baby shower. She and Daniel were expecting their first child, a girl they planned to name Eliza, after Olivia's mother. In the kitchen, Olivia and Sophia worked side by side, preparing a feast worthy of the occasion. Their easy camaraderie reflected the strong bond that had formed between Olivia and her son's partner. "Mom, have you seen?" Ethan began, poking his head into the kitchen. "On the porch," Olivia answered before he could finish. "Your father just brought them in." Ethan nodded his thanks and disappeared in search of Maxwell. He found him on the back deck, arranging flowers in vases, dahlias, and sunflowers, Emma's favorites. "Need a hand?" Ethan offered, joining his father at the table. "Thanks," Maxwell replied, grateful for the company. "How's the restaurant?" "Busy," Ethan said with satisfaction. "The new summer menu is a hit, and the Chicago Tribune reviewer is coming next week." "You'll impress them," Maxwell said confidently. "You always do." They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes. The sound of waves breaking on the shore below them. The rhythmic crash and retreat of the tide marked the passage of time in a way that felt both eternal and immediate. "Dad," Ethan said suddenly, "I've been thinking about something." "What's that?" Maxwell asked, noting the serious tone in his son's voice. "I want to change my name, legally, to Donovan Hale." Maxwell set down the flowers he was arranging, stunned by the unexpected declaration. "Ethan, you don't have to." "I know," Ethan interrupted. "That's why I want to, because it's my choice, not an obligation." He met his father's gaze directly. "You've been more than just a name to us these past 3 years. You've been a father in every way that matters. I want to acknowledge that." Emotion welled in Maxwell's throat. "I would be honored," he managed to say. "But have you discussed this with your mother?" "Yes," Ethan nodded. "She supports whatever I decide. Emma's considering it too, though she might wait until after the baby is born to avoid the paperwork hassle." Maxwell reached out and clasped his son's shoulder, words failing him in the face of this profound gesture of acceptance. "I know it's just a name," Ethan continued, somewhat awkwardly, "but names matter. They connect us to our past and our future, to our family." "They do," Maxwell agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "And family matters most of all." The sliding door opened, and Emma waddled onto the deck, her hands supporting her rounded belly. The afternoon sunlight caught her wedding ring, and the emerald pendant Maxwell had given her on her wedding day a match to Olivia's engagement ring. "What are you two being so serious about?" she asked, easing herself into a chair. "This is supposed to be a party." "Just man talk," Ethan replied with a wink at his father. "Uh-huh," Emma said skeptically. "Well, man talk later. Mom needs help bringing in the groceries and Daniel is stuck on a work call." "We're on it," Maxwell assured her, giving Ethan's shoulder a final squeeze before they headed inside. As the afternoon progressed and guests began to arrive, Maxwell found himself watching his family with a heart full of gratitude. Olivia, still beautiful at 50, laughing with her sister who had flown in from Seattle. Emma, radiant in her pregnancy, opening gifts for her daughter-to-be. Ethan and Sophia, heads bent together as they arranged the elaborate cake they'd created for the occasion. This was his legacy, not the technology empire he'd built, not the fortune he'd amassed, but these people who had welcomed him into their lives and hearts, despite the years of absence. Olivia found him on the deck later, as the party wound down and the sun began its descent toward the horizon. "Happy?" she asked, slipping her arm around his waist. "Beyond words," he replied, pulling her close. "Did you ever imagine, when you sent that message 3 years ago, that we'd end up here?" "Never," Olivia admitted. "I was angry, hurt, afraid of disrupting the life we'd built. I just thought you deserved to know about them." "It was the greatest gift anyone has ever given me," Maxwell said softly. "A second chance at everything that matters." They stood together, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of gold and crimson, the same colors that had filled the sky the night they'd first met. Young and full of dreams neither could have imagined would take so long to fulfill. Inside, their family waited the children they'd created together, the partners those children had chosen. And soon, a grandchild who would never know the pain of separation that had marked their own story. "We should go in," Olivia said eventually. "Help with the cleanup." "In a minute," Maxwell replied, turning to face her fully. "I just want to remember this moment. How it feels to have everything I never knew I needed." Olivia smiled, the same smile that had captivated him 25 years earlier. "We have a lifetime of moments ahead of us," she reminded him. "Each one better than the last. Promise?" Maxwell asked, drawing her closer. "Promise," Olivia whispered, sealing the vow with a kiss as the last rays of sunlight gilded their entwined figures against the darkening sky. In that perfect moment, the circle was complete. The love that had begun on this same shore a quarter-century earlier had endured separation, misunderstanding, and the passage of time to emerge stronger, deeper, and more precious than either could have imagined in their youth. Not just a second chance, but a new beginning. Not just a family reunited, but a family reborn. And in the end, that was all that truly mattered. If you found meaning in this story, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that it's never too late for truth to heal what time has broken. And before you go, hit subscribe, because some stories do more than entertain. They change how we see the world and the choices we make tomorrow.